Well, then his cousin,
he has no social
he hadn't seen
media.
him in a while.
He has
Then
a
his
flip
cousin,
phone that
or
he will
somebody
call
he's
people on
kin
if he
to,
needs
comes
to.
in town and says, "Hey, man,
He has
I
no
want to go to
social
a concert
media at
or
all.
something." And Butch goes, "Well, I
He's
don't
not
know if there's a
married.
concert
He has a
going on
12-year-old
or
daughter
anything like that." He goes, "Yeah, there's Barnabas Speedwagon or somebody like that at the Billy Bob's." He goes, "You want to go?"
All right.
Sure.
And
So they go, and then his cousin gets a beer, and Butch is, the deacon at the church. And then he thinks, well, he's drinking.
Doesn't want you to cut.
Give me one, so he gives him one, and then they go and sit down. And then here comes his ex-wife and a lady
Yeah, I
from
couldn't
our
do that a while ago
church.
when I was trying to send
And
that
the
thing to Bill, so I
16-year-old
finally just sent him a picture of
They
it because
see
I couldn't
Butch
figure out how to
with a beer in his hand
make it go through.
at this club, and he hadn't even taken one drink yet. And they see him and confront him and find out, "Oh my gosh, he's turning to alcohol now. Oh, the divorce is setting him over the edge." And he oh, I got one. It ruined that 16-year-old kid that was looking up to him, holding him on a pedestal.
Okay, so this week
For that kid wanted to want to ever call him again.
This week the podcast was part 4 of the 3-part series of Killing Giants and Taking Names.
I like that you did that, me too.
It's the epilogue.
You tell your guy the Galaxy is a trilogy of 5 books.
Yeah.
I mean, smoking to me.
When you're not the one called.
But I know other Christians that when they see people that they struggle with it.
Anybody have any thoughts?
But yeah, that's like when you stumble.
I did.
Yeah.
What was it?
Because street people.
She said I used to.
Like, hey, you smoking
I
weed?
got that. I was like, I need to ask
I'm
Bill
like,
about that. I
you
haven't
know,
thought.
I knew she was smoking,
Exactly
but
what I
I
thought.
didn't. You know, no street Christians, okay, let's go. And it didn't bother me. She's over there away from her mic. But the
I
other
was
dudes that
wondering.
were passing out tracks were like, hey, people are watching her.
I think she
And I'm
still
like,
has the
okay,
floor.
what am I supposed to do?
No,
Kick her
we
out of
wasn't
Sunday school
gonna
class
turn it.
because she smokes? I ain't gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it can go either or, either way.
Oh. Yeah. What was I talking about in the car?
Okay, so in the missions world, they talk about in the evangelical missions world, the viewpoint is that is the only world there is. And they talk about these 6 ways that you can serve in missions. And it's called The Plan. And so I went back over the teaching about The Plan. And I took all of those very niche ideas about how you could serve and expanded them to, well, what are you actually doing? What's the basic definition of what you're doing there? And kind of made it bigger. And they gave them new titles based off the descriptions.
Scientific process.
Yes. Very scientific. Said you remembered your question?
Yes. Okay. Are you done with what you're saying?
I think so. Am I done with what I was saying? She says I answered her question.
You were talking about when you're not the one called. And I've wondered before, and I don't know if it's something that we know or has been addressed or if you addressed it, but I wondered, Saul was king. He was anointed king. And then David was anointed king and became king after Saul died. What about Jonathan? Wouldn't Jonathan have expected to become king when Saul, or whoever the oldest son was, I just assumed it was Jonathan. But wouldn't that normally have passed to his son when Saul died?
There was no procedure set yet. This was the first king they'd ever had.
Was he the first king ever?
The first king of Israel.
What, first
Other
king of
countries
Israel?
had kings.
And they weren't in a feudal system yet.
Yeah. So there was
See,
no
that's what I
reasonable
thought.
expectation of Jonathan taking over, except maybe in Saul's mind,
Yeah.
he might have thought, one day I'll have usurp my son. But Jonathan was on board with David from the moment they really, really met. Jonathan was like, "Here, dude, take all my clothes, take all my stuff."
Yeah, that was my thought when you were talking about when you're not the one called. Because I've always wondered about that. Well, Jonathan and David were such good friends, but what did Jonathan think about, was he groomed to become king? I'm just thinking in my own head, but that's where my mind was when we were talking about you're not the one called. Because he still had a calling, but obviously it wasn't for him to become king, and he was great with David being king.
So,
it seems like.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it in any of this series, but if you really want to talk about someone who probably recognized the call in David's life, it was probably Jonathan, the son of the king. And the moment David moves into the palace, Jonathan gives him his coat of arms, his belt, his weapon, everything. He basically says, I'm hitching my horse to your car, or my car to your horse, however you want to say it. He basically says, hey, I'm sticking with you. You're going places I want to be, where you're going. And he tells him, you put all this stuff on, when people see you, they're going to see me. Right? They're going to see the son of the king.
It could be that Jonathan didn't want that responsibility anyway.
There's a lot of supposition about it. I get often playing trail.
Everyone likes the idea of being president until you realize that there are assassination attempts.
That's just
People
always
shoes at you.
been in the back of my head. Anyway, what about, because you think about what, his brothers were jealous. His friend, Saul was trying to kill him. Nobody wanted him to be king.
Well, that could be another factor. Jonathan would be like, my dad is so crazy.
My dad's a loon. Here, put this on so that if he tries to kill me in my sleep, he might kill you accidentally. Maybe that's what Jonathan's motivation was.
Could have gone it either way.
I need to make some adjustments.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
I was trying to dodge his father's spear.
Dude, let him take it out on you all at once. Go ahead. You go in there and fix it.
Oh, man. That's fun.
So when you're talking about the roles, one of the things that you didn't really mention much was the fact that most people throughout their lives, they do fit into more than one role.
Yes.
Sometimes at the same time, but definitely more than one role for different things, different aspects of their life.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I kind of feel like that's an important distinction. But I will also say that I think some of those roles seem like they could have merged a little bit.
Okay.
Just their definitions seem
Like I said, I adapted them from a teaching that was more niche.
Yeah.
Why are you laughing every time I say niche? Very, very niche. And
I know the exact sermon you're talking about.
Yeah.
He was wondering if you would recognize him.
Of course. And it really upsets. Never mind.
Was it your sermon?
No.
It upsets you?
No, not that. I don't want to get into it.
That I stole the plan?
No. Oh no.
Well, his point is very valid.
Really? Even you, Brian?
Brian!
Everyone here thought I was going to make it through the whole night. No, what I was going to say was, there are times when you have been given a calling and you like it, and then God changes it and you don't like it. Just saying, that can happen.
Yeah. And then as
You
king,
mean like getting anointed king and seeing it going away?
now see, as king,
He was still called to be king. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you're called to be something you don't want to be, it does happen.
so as king, Saul would have had to have walked in all of these.
Yes.
He would have had to have been a doer. He would have had to have been a backer. He would have had to have been a luminary. He would have had to have been an energizer, an influencer, and an intercessor in order to effectively be the king of Israel. And if he didn't, then God would have unanointed him. Like he did. And he anointed someone else. And then when that king stopped fulfilling all of these duties, he too came to a tragic end.
Well, I mean, David took on additional roles. Like the role of someone else's, you know, significant other.
No, I'm about to.
What?
Did he take on that role, or did he take on the role of an adulterer?
I mean, I'm just saying. Like,
Technically, as king of Israel, he couldn't commit adultery. The sin was that he then arranged to have her husband killed.
That was the sin.
Because
that canceled it out, right? Okay, I'll kill your husband, so then it's not adultery anymore.
You're right.
No, him
Because
having
if he
sex
had
with her
said-
wasn't the adultery.
Yeah.
As
And-
king, he could do that with any woman that he wanted in the land.
And
They're his
Uriah,
subjects.
I mean,
the thing is, Uriah, as a loyal servant to the king, would have probably said, take her.
Yeah, Uriah would have been completely complicit.
You know?
But then sending Uriah to be killed, that was where the king overstepped his boundaries.
I think part of that was because she actually got pregnant.
Alright, okay.
No, if she had gotten pregnant with Uriah's permission, then there wouldn't have been any consequence. There wouldn't have been anything. The fact that he sent him into battle in odds that he knew he was going to lose against.
Yeah,
That
but
was
at
the boundary.
the same time, I mean, he may have just thought this is the way kings do things because Saul had to take down. Okay, I'm really reaching there.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Where's Kenny?
I don't know.
This is Luke and Natalie's last Sunday here.
It's not actually
Oh, I thought they looked
in
like
the Bible, but it's
It's part of the.
yeah, it's like in the histories. It's across multiple cultures, not just the Jewish culture. It's everywhere in history.
But why? Why is that a thing? Why is that allowed?
Because technically subjects are property of the king, and so it's not a question of them having individual rights. It's a question of him doing what he pleases with his property.
This strikes me as why the feudal system is not ever going to work.
Really? It just now struck you? Just throwing it out there. All the games of Civ, and you just now realize that
God tried to warn the Israelites, you don't want a king. This is not going to turn out like you think it's going to turn out.
I don't think you know what that word
You think the judges were bad. Wait until you get a king.
What is it?
I don't think you know what
I don't think that word.
I don't think that word means what you think it
The
means.
word means, yeah.
Inconceivable.
That man is on some show that we've been watching lately, and he's old and all bent over, and I still
I
wait
mean, he
for
was kind of old and all that over. That's right. too.
Gregory and I have been watching back through Eureka, and he's on that show in the last season.
I enjoyed that.
I read to somebody that they didn't hurry up and get there. I was watching on this.
some lawyer show.
Yeah, that was Carly today. Oh, does anybody else have anything they want to bring up about
We've been watching.
this week's podcast or some other podcast in this series?
I like the one where Roxanne
All right. I'm
That
not sure
was
that was
all
in this
four of them.
series.
That was, well, yeah.
The whole trilogy.
I mean, the one where he was talking about.
That was the last
I think that was before the series started.
He's the one that said it. I just said I like that one. He said he never had any of them, and I said I like that one.
Well, the only note that I came with was to prepare for an objection to my callings thing, but nobody objected. So, in this particular manner.
Oh,
What
well, he had
objection
it.
did you believe someone?
What objection do you want Matt to make?
I'll back it up. Let's go for it. I'm ready.
They're making out.
Rabbit trail.
Sorry. No, they're done now.
Somebody get a shotgun.
Everyone getting a look.
Sorry.
He's happy about it too. He's like, yeah. She kissed me and it's good. Yeah. She's walking away from his car.
And just knocking the
You just
window
get
real loud.
into the driving seat.
Thumbs up.
Oh,
We should
okay.
stop voyeuring people that are parking.
So I thought, what do you Ray? What do you looked it up?
Nothing.
It's an empty blank piece of paper.
It's effective. It's effective.
We're on camera.
Oh, I forgot about that.
What?
Smile, you're on live feed camera.
If it's working.
I kind of hovered over there for a little bit after I turned it on before we passed these out to make sure that it was working.
Yeah.
I hit start, and as soon as I walked away, it stopped recording, and the phone did sleep, and we didn't get last week didn't get sent out. So I thought someone would object and bring up Ephesians 4:11, where it says that some have been given to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors, some teachers.
I thought those were the roles, and then you went in a whole other roles, and I was like, okay, I'm going to roll with the roles.
He's gonna do American roles.
Yeah.
Oh,
The CSB or whatever roles.
Well, I mean, it comes down to they're just different descriptors
Different roles.
of different roles. We mentioned it certain.
Like some of them are spring rolls, the other ones are egg rolls.
And are there gifts that aren't mentioned?
I like both.
So I like what Matt said about you flow. I do like spring roll. You flow in and out of these callings throughout your life. During different seasons. Different seasons you're called to different things. And so these are callings, right? In Ephesians 4:11, these are offices that you can hold in the church. And these are only for in the church. These have nothing to do with outside of the church. And we know that because in Ephesians 4:12 it says that these roles are given for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry to build up the body of Christ. So those offices, apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, are specifically for inside the church to prepare the church, the people in the church, to go out and do ministry. Right? So I specifically looked up these words that in the English we've translated into apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. And the word apostle from the Greek can also be translated as delegate, ambassador, or messenger. A prophet can also be translated as the word foreteller, inspired speaker, or poet. An evangelist can the only other word that can be translated as is preacher. A pastor is a shepherd. And a teacher is an instructor, a doctor, or a master.
A doctor?
A doctor.
For teacher.
Yep.
Yeah. PhD.
Now in the modern church, when we say pastor, we mean evangelist, pastor, teacher. But those are supposed to be three different roles. Pastor is supposed to be interpersonal care. You know, a one-on-one ministry, taking care of the flock. Not necessarily the preacher who's preaching the emotional side of the word, or the teacher who's teaching the nuts and bolts of the word, but just the person that's dealing with one-on-one the people. If you have a pastor of a church that never interacts with the people, they're not a pastor. They can be a teacher or a preacher, but they don't fit the definition, the biblical definition of the word pastor.
See, that seems backwards to me, because when I think of a pastor, I think of a pastor over the whole group. That's what it's like. It's the shepherd over the flock. Right. And he does interact, but that's, maybe I'm looking at it differently, but in my mind, it's not his job. He should get to know people. He should have interpersonal relationships with people in congregation. But his job is more corporate to me. Is that the opposite of what you're saying?
That would be the apostle.
I don't know what
Paul.
the terms are, but I mean, like, what is a deacon then?
A deacon is another word for elder.
Okay.
And the elders usually fulfill the roles of pastors, evangelists, or teachers in the church.
We're talking about like
I've never seen
Dan.
actually interacting with
No, I'm talking about Mike, who is over everybody, and
Wouldn't it
then
be
there
great if we
are
actually followed
other
the biblical
pastors
roles that are
and
laid
teachers
out in the
and
Bible
leaders that are
for our
under
Christian
him.
faith?
But his main priority is corporately, he has his leaders, and he sends them out to take care of the people.
And some churches need that role, but it's not called, it shouldn't be called pastor, it should be called
Biblically, the pastor is the person who owns the home that all the people come to have a meal at, and he emotionally takes care of those people. That's the pastor. Shepherd.
It's different in the Baptist world because the executive people can fire a pastor.
But see, I'm just talking about New Testament world, where the church came from, not what the church has become, but what the Bible says the church should be.
Hey, on a side note, our new pastor came up and shook my hand today and said, "Hey, how was y'all's trip? It looks like you had fun." I'm thinking,
See?
okay,
So he's actually digging into the role of pastor.
I'm kind of scared that, we went on a trip. Oh yeah, we're on Facebook. Okay.
So he's actually digging into the role of pastor.
Yes.
Oh, I thought that you were just talking about Dale.
No, not me.
I think it's funny that I have to look, because I always see them once every few weeks here in South Lake, when I'm at South Lake, and I can always see them. And I do see them, I forget that I have to say sometimes, like, this is like, I just want to, and every time I see her, I love it. But I so rarely get to see her.
One of the things that frustrates me is when we interchange teacher and preacher. Whereas a teacher is the person who takes the word and goes, okay, this is literally what it says, and we apply that to what it literally, the way it literally affects our lives. And a preacher gets up and says, I was watching the football game the other day and he threw that ball and it reminded me of this one scripture that says this, and then that's the only word that's in the whole lesson is he read that one scripture and then he told anecdotes the rest of the time. Okay, you're preaching, you're not teaching, and that bores me. When I come across something and they're preaching, I just turn it off. I'm like, this bores me, I don't care. I don't care about your 3-year-old struggles. I don't care about your football team. You're trying to relate to me on an anecdotal level. I just don't care. Teach me something, get into the nuts and bolts of the word, talk about the Greek definitions. You got me hooked. You bring up all this story stuff, I'm just not interested. George Roxanne says, sometimes you tell stories.
Well, I was just thinking of the other day when I embarrassed you. While you were
What'd you do? How'd you embarrass him? Tell me.
I'm telling you, I
Tell everybody.
It was accidental, of course. He was at a conference.
Yeah, I was at the Southwest
Right,
Blues.
sure.
He was at the Southwest Believers Conference, and he was sitting like on the second row, right, like 10.
No, it's about from here to Bryan.
From Kenneth Copeland. And it was real quiet. Kenneth Copeland was talking and preaching and teaching, whatever he does.
And my phone goes, warning, warning, it's the wife. And I'm like, and it's in my jacket pocket. So I'm like feeling my pants. I'm like, where is it? Reaching down in my...
Please tell me that you heard me.
No, he's a professional. He doesn't turn and look when phones ring, but everyone else did.
So figuratively, even if your phone's on silent, if you've got one of your contacts set to
Emergency bypass.
it'll ring anyway. Okay, so but in my defense, he told me the person he wanted to listen to started at 10, and it was 9:51. And I called him thinking, they haven't started yet.
Now the next day, the person we did want to see, we were on the second row. So most of the time, I'm sitting here like this, and the guy we wanted to see, Keith Moore, he's this far away from me. And like I can see the contour of the blush on his face that the makeup girls put on him so close. That was fun.
Well, he was on TV, right?
Yeah.
He was on
televised.
TV.
I just thought it was funny that I embarrassed myself.
I'm I'm in a suit, I got a tie on. I'm like, you know,
Everyone knew who I was.
I'm wearing like a $500 outfit. I've got my phone in my pocket. It's like the most expensive clothes I own. Warning! Warning! It's the wife!
Well, you should have done it. Start looking around like whose phone is that?
As you do that, fidget through your stuff.
Yeah, whose phone is going on?
I didn't think that quickly. I didn't think that. I was just like, oh no.
What I do, like, if my phone is going off, I don't have it on camera. Because I can turn the ringer off with this button.
It was already
So
off,
I was just like this.
Yeah, it was physically on silent. But because I had emergency bypass turned on, it literally bypasses the physical settings and lets that person's call go through. Yes, I've turned that off.
Okay.
I had it set for every board member was set to emergency bypass.
So,
Nobody sets emergency bypass.
yeah. So if you have an emergency, you're not going to be able to get hold of it.
I didn't want to tell you, Lifestyle Church released a new app.
Yeah, I know. I got it.
Check it out.
I've been on the.
I can't look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on the waiting list since he announced it 2 years ago at Gateway. So the moment it became available, I got an email and I immediately clicked it, downloaded it.
Yeah, obviously, a lot of you shot to the #1 spot.
So far, every picture I put up, it's only pulled up the same 5 verses every time. So I don't know if that's just me or what's going on, but I did this one of the fire that's in California. It's big old plumes of you can see the fires like 50, 100 feet in the air. Same 5 scriptures as a picture of me. And so I was like, I don't know why the fire is going to be the same as my face, but I guess I really need to see these real scriptures right now. She dropped her phone. But it's a pretty cool app. Yeah, so I thought honestly I thought it would be Ken that brought up the Ephesians 4:11 thing, but then he didn't come. So.
I thought about that when you first started talking about it, but then I was like, oh, okay.
That would require me to remember anything about that book at all.
The book of Ephesians?
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are specifically offices that you can hold in the church.
Or the other ones are kind of tied more to your personality or status.
I mean, you flow in and out of them throughout your life. So yeah, they can be informed by personality, status, but it's a seasonal thing, really. Like when you're an influencer and you become president, you're not always going to be president. So you may not always be an influencer. Like Bill Clinton had influence when he was in office, and the moment he got impeached, I didn't care what he said anymore. So he stopped being an influence in my life. He was the president. Bill Clinton.
I voted for him.
I respect the person in the office of the president.
I do too, and I respect you for doing that. That's good.
Regardless of political affiliation.
I will respect people for being people, but that doesn't mean that.
Sorry, sometimes people are
Some.
That doesn't mean that what, Matt?
I respect people for being people, but and I'll respect what an office is supposed to be, but that does not mean that I will respect a person in that role. I think that's blending too much, and it's to me it's almost disrespectful to say, oh, you have this title and therefore you deserve this thing. No, earn it, you deserve it. If you don't, then it would be wrong of me to respect you with just the title. Just like you have title of king. I don't care. You can be the king all you want, but unless you are actually doing good to the people, you do not deserve my respect. But as an individual person, on a person-to-person level, because you are another human being, I can recognize all the difficulties your life has that mine does as well, and perhaps even more. And I will respect them for being a person. I will respect the office of king or president or whatever. But that there's this third zone where someone is not doing their job in their position, at that point, it doesn't completely
How do you respect the office without respecting the person?
Because people can be horrible.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead. So this is what I hear you saying, okay? And I just use Donald Trump as an example, not that you respect him or don't respect him, but I'm just because he's the president. So respect the office of the president, okay? And you can respect Donald Trump as a human being.
Yes.
You could go out and have a cup of coffee or drink a beer with him or whatever you could respect him as a person. But you may not like him as the president.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like Barack Obama, I respected him as a man, and I respected the office. I just didn't like him as president. Okay. And it's not that it doesn't have anything to do with me with respect. It's just that I didn't like him as president.
No, but for me, it's not just that I don't like them. It's I don't believe that this person is as a military brat. I do not believe that this person in this position deserves a salute from armed officers. That's what I mean by not respecting the person. It's not just the office, because, for example, if we're talking about the president, for example, Bill Clinton as a person, you get along with him, you talk to him, you understand that he's a human being, he has to breathe, he has to eat, he has to poop, all kinds of stuff. As the office of the president, the same office that was held by Reagan, Bush, Carter, Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, on and on. This office means a lot. It means a lot to the people that vote for someone to go into that position. It is an important position, and it is a position that deserves respect for what it means, the power that it holds, and the intention that people should have when they take that office. Then you have Bill Clinton's actions in that office. You have Bill Clinton's actions specifically. Well, I'm not even talking about that, because I don't care what he does at night with whom. That has no bearing whatsoever on the job that he's supposed to do. He can go have the time of his life with 30 people at the same time. I don't care. Whatever. It doesn't affect the decisions that he makes. However,
yes, Connie went there.
However, choosing to deal with Somalia the way he did earned him a lack of respect from the armed forces. The Marines, like when you step off the helicopter, the Marines are supposed to salute you.
I understand they're supposed to salute the president. I thought that was because the president was the leader over the military.
Kind of, but they're supposed to, not out of obligation, but rather out of a sign of respect for that person as commander-in-chief.
Yeah, okay.
Because of what he did and the lives that he left in Somalia, and the pull out, I don't care if people were being if our own soldiers were being dragged through the streets until their bodies literally fell apart. That was beyond disrespectful to the military, the service, and in general, all of their families. And that earned him a non-salute.
Right. Well, see, that I can understand.
Just one
I thought
time
you
or
were
for a
saying
period of
just,
time?
I mean, it was for a period of time.
just as president.
But yes, so they respect the office. Perhaps they didn't respect the person. I will respect anyone as they are.
So in that
Yeah, as a
position, would
person.
you have saluted him or not?
No,
No.
absolutely not. Like you said, I'll go out and have a drink with him, no problem. I still respect the office and what it stands for.
You're
But
gonna
at
let
that-
him die accidentally.
Yeah, I'm
You know, you're still gonna protect the office because it's
Yes.
your job to protect the office.
Yes.
But the person you don't necessarily respect.
Well, no, again, I still.
I mean, the person in the office.
Yes, and that's where it becomes a third
Because of
role.
action, because of specific action.
That's where it becomes there's a person, there's a role, then there's the person in the role. That's where it becomes a third identity. And at that point, that you can judge separately. At least that is my opinion. That can be judged separately. I don't remember how we started on that.
I don't either.
I did want to make sure that we're very clear on that.
It makes some sense.
Yeah, because I'm basically, this is one of those areas where I'm like, I know I'm a dick, but here's the reason for it.
Yes, with me it's just, I just use a different word for probably the same thing, I just don't like it. And I don't think I'd ever, I don't care crap about Bill Clinton, I don't think I'd ever want to even sit down and have a cup of
I was
coffee
gonna
with
say,
him.
I don't respect the person that much, but I respect the office. And I would show respect to him out of respect for the office, but I wouldn't want to go have beer with him or coffee or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just separated in my head a little differently. I guess.
There are very few people on the planet that I would not respect as a person. Like very, very few. One of them caused the death of my daughter, and at the moment, that's the only one that I can think of. But yeah, that's kind of difficult. But aside from that, I feel that every person has things that they struggle with, and they make mistakes. They may make huge mistakes, and in general, they may be easily considered an all-around horrible person. But if I was in that person's position and had grown up the exact same way, I can't necessarily say that I would make decisions completely differently. So at that point, I still like Manson. I'm still gonna respect him as a person. I think he royally screwed up.
Charles or Marilyn?
Well, I mean, Marilyn's actually
Just drill it down into what you're saying.
Marilyn's actually a great guy. But there are some choices that were made that I don't agree with.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, but I meant Charles specifically. And yeah, we're in this group, in my opinion.
That's funny because when working through forgiveness and trying to forgive people, I have to stop and think of them as a human being, as God's creation, or even as a small child. You know, I don't know what happened to that small child that caused this grown-up
Yeah, and it may not have been one thing, it may have been a series of things.
grown-up thing that they become, you know, and that I couldn't figure out how to forgive people that had hurt me until I could look at them like that.
Yeah, and I think
and think.
Too often it's a domino effect.
Yeah.
Something bad happens to a child, and then because they respond with a certain attitude, it causes something bad to happen to a child. And then because they respond to a certain way, it causes something else bad to happen.
Yeah.
And so you get this series of bad things that lead to Jonathan Holding, a bad adult.
Well, and I look at myself, you know, I look at.
You're like, I can't disagree.
I look at mistakes that I made and not trying to make excuses, but you know, you don't know how I was raised. You don't know who, you don't know why I do the things I do. And when I can turn that around and apply it to other people, and I think, well, they're just a mean person. At some point, something happened back there.
Yeah, maybe, and again,
Unless you're a psychopath, you didn't pop out of the womb a psychopath.
Well.
But then there's Jonathan.
Then there's Jonathan.
But
I can turn it on and off. What does that make me?
Medical professionals have to be able to do the same thing.
Yeah.
For example, you know, there are African American doctors and nurses and things that have to treat someone who might be aligned with the KKK, and they still have to do it.
Yeah.
Because they have to be able to separate that. And then with the whole concept of being able to step into multiple roles, sometimes it's really difficult, but sometimes it is important to be able to separate yourself from one role in order to perform another role.
Yes, like in the roles here, when you've got teacher and evangelist trying to be pastor, and somebody comes to you and they're, you know, a crackhead whore, you have to divorce yourself from the teacher to have the compassion of the pastor. Otherwise, you're going to turn them off and send them running from the church. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that haven't been able to do that. And they've hurt people.
I'm sorry, I got stuck in that.
They've ended up hurting people from the position of, you know, where they were and driving them away from the church because they couldn't divorce teacher from pastor.
I thought teachers and pastors weren't supposed to do.
That's not what the Bible says.
I know God hates.
No, I mean, it gives specific rules on how.
Only because the people were stubborn. Yeah. It says that God only allowed divorce because the people were so stubborn. Stiff-necked is the exact word he uses. And that's why God
Is it
said...
the exact word? Is it the exact word, Bill? Have you looked that up in the Greek?
Actually,
does it mean your
Greek,
neck?
it would be Aramaic, and yes, it does say stiff-necked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so...
Okay.
She just wanted to do the Bible.
Yeah, but you went twice.
For a while, and then came in for
Why don't
like
you go check on them a couple minutes?
She probably thought about food.
Maybe for
she was talking to me.
Are you going to check on them?
Yeah, I'll double check.
So yeah, so the Bible didn't give specific instances where you can get a divorce. And then the New Testament does say if you want to be a leader in the church, you can only have one wife. Which would mean you could get divorced, but you couldn't get remarried. Because then by every biblical definition, you'd have more than one wife.
What if your wife died?
In the case that a wife dies, you're still technically married to her.
I thought the whole death do us part thing is a built-in escape clause.
Death do us part is a religious phrase that people adapted.
Okay, so it's not something that's actually in the Bible?
I thought when Jesus was talking about that, he says that the only reason that God granted divorce was because these were stiff-necked people that said,
It was only
any
for adultery.
any person who gets divorced and remarries commits adultery. Now, it doesn't say death. I mean, it's
Whatever.
I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is in the Bible, but I know that if your spouse dies, you can get remarried.
Yeah, I don't think you're under the law anymore. Because the contract's void.
It says it in. I'm pretty sure I've read it somewhere.
But what that
void if you're not living.
It all, I mean, all of Judaism at the time was all based on the letter of the law, not necessarily the spirit of the law. So Jesus was correct and may have specifically been to correct that. To state that, no, I mean, actually, probably.
That divorce is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it says that what God's joined together, let no man pull.
No man pulls
Yeah.
under.
So they intended for one wife to be one
And
man.
so, as a people, we adapted this phrase of "till death do us part" as a built-in escape hatch for ourselves. It's not a biblical phrase.
Which means that all of that time plotting murder.
Yes, pretty much.
I've heard people say that they believe that God is the God of second chances.
I mean,
Yeah. So
sometimes. Lazarus kind of got a second chance.
Some people do like 15th chances. And 300th.
I could think of something like that.
I mean,
Where's the paper?
the only time the Bible ever says a man can't have more than one wife is if he wants to serve in one of the leadership roles in the church. If he wants to be an apostle, a prophet, an evangelist, a pastor, a teacher, if he wants to be one of those things, then he can't have more than one wife. There's nowhere in the Bible that it says you can't have more than one wife, except for if you're going to fill one of these roles.
I don't want to wife.
You can't have more than one husband.
You sure is pretty popular nowadays.
Actually, I could use a wife to do all the crap that I don't want to do.
Well,
I
if that's
think
how
you
you
mean
define a wife,
no,
then that could be a
not
man. I mean,
There you go.
I think you mean
Just
20.
pick another wife for your husband, and she can do all that other stuff. And
There you go.
Or
as long as he doesn't want to be a leader in the
We're
church.
already adulterers anyway, right?
You might as well go all the way.
Yeah! Big polygamous one.
This is taking a turn.
There have been times
Kind of enjoying it, I don't know.
Mother?
I'd love it.
There have been times in the Bible where, for whatever reason, if there were more women on the earth than men did have more than one wife. But the thing was, is that a lot of times they took another wife to take care of them because they were living in the field. And then look at Samuel's mother was married to a man who had another wife. Okay, and 1 Samuel starts out with.
Is that the same Samuel that was looking?
There were,
So the Mormons are right.
no, I mean it said that the man loved both of his wives, and Samuel's mother could not conceive, and she went to the temple crying, and the priest in the temple thought she was drunk, and tried to kick her out, and she said, I want a baby. And if God gives me a baby, I will dedicate this baby to the Lord. And so she got pregnant, she had the baby, and she took Samuel down to the temple. And basically, they raised him. And when he got old enough, God started to speak.
Age of 8. 8 seems to be the biblical time when God starts speaking to
It's a
people.
time of, it's a number of change. It's like when things flip over or something like that.
I don't think
Hey, Greg. Greg.
That's just what I've heard.
I don't think God intended them to have multiple wives. Because it says the man should leave his mother and father and cleave unto the wife, and the two shall become one. But I think that the reason why they did it in the Old Testament is because by their own desires to have multiple wives. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't think God really intended it to happen that way.
I don't know. You're probably right.
Because if
And
that's the case, then the Mormons' polygamy thing is right. But for some reason, the law of the land said it was wrong, so they started getting in trouble everywhere they was going and getting in trouble for it.
Well, I mean,
So then they gave up on that teaching.
I asked a Muslim one time. I knew this guy who was a Muslim. I asked him, I said, so how many wives can you guys have? He says, well, we can have up to 6 wives, but you have to be able to financially support whatever wives you have. So you can have up to 6 as long as you can take care of them.
You can't make them go out and get jobs.
Nope,
no.
not.
Yeah.
They have to sit at home. You have to be the breadwinner.
That is one of the really unfortunate things is that they have to. They don't get the choice in the matter. Because technically, if you can support them, but they still want to work, it should be okay. But their teachings specifically say that they're not allowed to, which sucks.
For them,
Well,
doesn't make me any difference one way or the other.
if you look at like
Stick your whole
1960s
back in front of the
Iran,
live stream.
if you look at Iran back in the 1960s,
That's what
it was kind of great. Most of the
whole
women were walking around in blue jeans and able to, you know, work, and they were a lot of times working in fields. They didn't have to wear, big, they didn't have to cover everything about themselves. Now, they still, in general, wore something to cover their heads. But that was, you know, for a specific religious reason. And they weren't being forced into it. So it was a pretty great free lifestyle back then. And then the state radicalized behind religion. And
Ayatollah came in.
it destroyed everything.
Ayatollah Khomeini.
Today, we've got a pretty full day ahead of us, so we need everyone to be on their A game. We have something really cool to tell you. Commander Kelly, why don't you tell me?
Thank you, Commander Daniel. For the first time,
As far as the woman's concerned, I think they screwed up. Yeah. I think that's pretty much started it.
Yeah. And when I was thinking about Abraham, and his wife couldn't conceive, so he took his handmaid Hagar and
Well, she
had a
gave,
child with
which
her.
the wife gave.
And then the wife did give birth.
Yes, but he did not marry Hagar.
Yeah.
He simply loaned. He was loaned her by his wife.
Yeah. But God intended to bless the bloodline.
He did.
And cast out the handmaiden and child.
When the handmaiden went out into the desert, God said, I'm going to bless you, but you are going to be a donkey of a man.
Donkey of a man.
A donkey of a...
They call that a jack.
I was gonna say, is that where that word came from?
Applejack.
Oh, what was it?
Jesus rode into Jerusalem on an ass.
What was it that Joseph was saying? Oh. Joseph. The whole time we were going to get saying, full snot.
Every king of
Shut the door.
every king of Israel rode into their coronation on the back of an ass.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
From Saul all the way down.
Why was that?
I have no idea where that tradition
Yeah,
started,
instead
but
of
they
some
did.
noble steed.
They all rode in on the back of an ass that had never been ridden before.
I don't know if horses was in that region at that time, was it?
Oh,
Were they?
not.
I don't know. They came from Arabia.
The wise men came on horses.
No, they came on camels.
Well, no, they would have come on horses, given their culture.
The wise guys.
They came on
Put the Hallmark shows show them on.
Yeah, it also shows 3 kings when it was really more like 3,000 people.
And the light was shining on the baby that had just been born.
The star had stopped.
Yeah. Right.
You gotta separate some myth from actual scripture.
I watched the movie this weekend.
Celebrated on January 6th instead of December 25th.
The Samaritan and the Hurt Man, you know? The Hurt Man, that's what we're calling him. The Jew. And the Jew walks and
January 6th.
he walks by the
historically
whatever what he is. He's a priest of the temple.
believed
And
that
he's got a horse stuck
wise
in
men
it. He helps
found-
his horse out. He keeps walking and he comes across the
Baby
guy.
Jesus.
His wheel fell off of his cart, so he helps him put his wheel back on. Then later he gets robbed, beaten up, thrown in the ditch, and they come by and they don't help him.
No, the wise
You
men
see
weren't
them
at
all along the road. And I was like, I'm not gonna tell them all that. I showed it to the 4-year-olds 4 times this weekend.
Poetic license.
Yeah.
And then
Poetic license. I like that.
Oh, and then there's a beaver that follows him
into
around.
he put them like over
The
on
beaver
the
follows
table.
him.
But in the same
A
room,
beaver in the desert.
in the wrong part of the room, and you're like, dude, really? And then like throughout the
Did he help
and you're like, dude, stop.
I gotta add some accuracy to my
That
pagan
is
holidays.
not funny.
Actually, it might have been like a meerkat.
I know, big. But I hadn't heard that before.
And it looked like a beaver that like round and had big teeth.
A lot of people actually do
They
that.
had things up in Colorado that we saw that look like, we thought they were calling them beavers, but they look like a big giant squirrel, this big.
Yeah, muskrat or
No, it wasn't a muskrat. I've seen
They were
groundhog.
huge.
like
Not groundhog.
They
About,
chipmunks too.
All right.
about
Time
that
to
big
end the
around.
live stream.
About this big around.
And then we can talk about
about this
muskrats.
long,
Muskrats.
and
You should talk about
run
muskrats
around
right
through
there.
the rocks, long furry tail.
Yay, the live stream ran the whole time this time. I'm glad if you joined us. If you didn't join us and you're watching this recorded, 6:30 every Sunday, or you can join us live at 5:30. We meet at 5:30. We have dinner together. We hang out. 6:30 is when we start the discussion. Go listen to the next podcast. Do You Faith? It's out now. Bye.